Wondering what else you need to buy in order to compete with the brand new branded decks coming out this week? Don't worry, we've got you covered with a whole load of cards that you can pick up very, very cheap. Let's check them out. What's up YouTube, Dale here from Z4 Games, and today I'm going to bring you all of the cards that you might need to buy in order to improve the branded structure deck coming out this week. Now the branded structure deck, of course, as it is the start of 2022, is definitely the best starter deck of the year already, and it definitely eclipses quite a few of the past ones, probably leading back to arguably Shaddolls, if not all the way back to Salamangreats. What this deck can actually provide to the meta is incredible, and the best thing about this is you can make different investments to the deck in order to compete at all different types of levels. So, with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. As it is release week, we will be bringing you a branded budget version, as well as a full-powered version, test hands, and then we'll start diving into all the different variants and how the branded decks can help everything else as well. So, let's dive into the first and possibly cheapest engine you can invest in order to improve your branded decks. So we start off with, of course, Shaddolls. Now, why are Shaddolls a very good investment for this deck? Well, the pure fact is they're really, really cheap and they've just had a structure deck. Not to mention that they can compete on a high level and they do not care about the restriction of branded fusion, locking you into fusion summoning for the entire turn. Keep in mind, those that are abusing the fact that we still have Verte Anaconda for branded fusion, it will only allow them to get to the Mirror Jade Dragon, which does provide you with an every other turn interruption. However, keep in mind as well that you'll be investing a lot to use that off of Verte Anaconda when Fusion Destiny does the same, if not maybe a little bit of a better job. Anyway, let's look at the Shaddoll cards. Well, the most expensive Shaddoll card that you're going to be looking into getting is, of course, Shaddoll Fusion. Now, Shaddoll Fusion is sitting around about, I think the cheapest I found on eBay was £2.70 with 50p postage. Now, obviously, if you can get free with that, the postage will can be bind, and it will probably make the card about £8 for a playset. So we're going to go on the average that if you can talk to a friend of yours that can hook you up with a couple of the cards as well. There are a lot of cards on here that are on eBay are going at 99p, but they're commons from the structure deck, so I expect people to have them lying around. So you can probably pick them up for 25p a piece, or about 50 cents, depending on where you are in the world. So we'll start with Shaddoll Fusion. What makes this such a good card? Well, it does exactly what Branded Fusion does. It lets you fuse from the deck. The only downside is it is only a card that is going to be utilised going second. So if you use it going first, it will require you to fuse your hand, which isn't the end of the world because you can use some of the cards you get in the Branded Structure deck in order to make some of your more well-known Shaddoll cards in the form of Construct and, of course, Winder as well. Not to mention that Branded Fusion can become a one-card Winder as well. Whether you're going to use Albion or whether you are going to use Lubellion, it does give you a couple of options to play around with that way in order to get Winder turn 1 off the back of Branded Fusion and 1 discard. So Shaddoll Fusion will also help you purify a go second build. It really depends on how you want to take the branded build itself. Keeping in mind the structure deck comes with both go first cards and go second cards. When you look at the stuff that it also includes kaijus as well. So it does come down to your personal preference. Now obviously if you are using the Shaddoll engine, you'll gain more advantage by going second because they will more times than not have a monster special on the extra deck. However, in the current format that we are in, do not be surprised if you see people dropping a scythe on you, and then that will completely blow out your format and blow out your playstyle, because the chances are you're probably going to go, okay, cool, I can't do anything, I'm locked into fusion summoning, my monsters in the main deck aren't great, so unless I'm going to give you a kaiju and give myself a stronger kaiju, I'm just going to have to pass and then get OTK'd the next turn. So, carrying off at the back of that Shaddoll Fusion, you also got the El Shaddoll Fusion, but I'm going to put that in the end of this little segment about Shaddolls because that was like a pound common. So I feel that with this Beast, Dragon, and possibly even Hedgehog as well, you'd be getting those for all four for about $1, maybe a pound as well. So the other cards that are going to be very, very important for the Shaddoll build are, of course, going to be the extra deck cards in the form of Construct, App Cologne, and, of course, Winder. You might even want to spice it up, add in a Shekanaga, and I'll explain why you would add a Shekanaga in a second. So all of these cards, apart from Winder, are 99p because they've had a structure deck reprint and then they got a Megatin reprint as well. So again, if you have a really good friend, they might be able to hook you up with these at 50p a piece if you're going to buy the whole lot off of them in one go. But that ultimately comes down to how good of a friend you have. If you are just going to have to buy them off of eBay or of course buy them off of a trusted website, you'll be able to get bulk deals and discounts. As you can see from some of the prices that I've found for you guys online, you do get multi-buy options as well. Now, why would you go for Shekanaga? Well, the reason you'd go for Shekanaga is you could actually spice in a very nice Fossil Fusion engine. And what I mean by that is, by activating Shaddoll Fusion, your board will pretty much build. Now, I'm going to show you these combos in the branded structure deck video later on this week. But the idea is, off of the Shaddoll Fusion, what it will get you is it will ultimately let you send Weathering Soldier. Weathering Soldier will give you Fossil Fusion, and then the way you're building your board is you only end up getting a Shekanaga with protection, so you're not worried about Nibiru. You activate the Branded Fusion, which will give you Lubellion, which will then give you your Ice Jade Dragon, and then you activate Fusion, Fossil Fusion, which will then ultimately get you into your Fossil King. Again, very, very cheap. It's about £2, and I believe Fossil Fusion is about £2, and Weathering Soldier is about £1. So it's just like an option of some spicy text. You can even add in a Shaddoll Genius, which I believe is about £4 to £5, and that just gives you an additional negate off of the back of your Shekanaga if you want to turn off the board as well. So that's pretty much it for the Shaddoll package itself. Like I said, some of the other cards like Dragon Beast and Hedgehog that you want to be putting in the main deck, I believe you can pick them up very, very easily because they've had like original rare prints, common prints, then they've had common reprints in the structure deck, and then on top of that as well, they also had foil ultra rare prints as well. So you should be able to play around with those and get them very, very cheaply. The next engine, which is a little bit more expensive but still just as effective, is of course the Invoked engine. Now when you look at getting the Invoked engine to increase your deck, you are looking at Magical Meltdown, currently sitting at about £4 to £5, depending on whether you want to be getting a gold rare or you want to be getting a super rare. Times that by 3, you're looking at nearly £12 to invest in the deck just for your field spell. However, the best thing about this particular field spell is it does stop your opponent negating your fusion summons. That does include if you play the Shaddoll package, if you play the branded package, everything like that, it will protect your plays going forward. So what that then means is that no matter what happens, if you activate your branded fusion, you're able to protect that from being negated. Keep in mind as well that there is a difference between activating something like Lancia on Invocation, because it technically doesn't negate the fusion summon, it just stops you banishing, so you're still able to fuse as long as you have the materials in the hand, so that one would actually work for you. You're then looking at, of course, Invocation. Now, Invocation is incredibly cheap right now. I highly advise people, if you don't have this engine, and you like fusion decks themselves, to be picking this up, because as a whole the deck is incredibly powerful. And then of course the Invoked engine at the moment, as long as it continues to be a Dante and constantly dodging the ban list, is always going to be a usable engine at some point in a format. You then look at Alistair Invoker, and this is one of the reasons why it is so important, is Alistair Invoker is currently on, I believe, its 3rd print. I believe it's had a super rare print, a gold rare print, and a secret rare print, and it still sits at about £7.50 per copy. So you're already dumping in near enough £21 to £22 just for a playset of Alistair, but he will become your normal summon. The best thing is with the branded deck, you don't really want to utilize any of your normal summons because the majority of those are going to be maybe something like Albaz, which you can special summon from the deck a multitude of ways as well. So being normal summon as powerful as Alistair gets you so much further. The only issue with the Invoked engine as a whole is in order to get the correct attributes to the graveyard for your Invoked, you're not able to go into the extra deck for link monsters if you are planning to use Branded Fusion. So what that does mean is that you would have to make sure that you are main decking light monsters in the form of maybe Effect Veilers or anything like that. Keeping in mind Effect Veilers and Ghost Ogre do come in the structure deck as well, so you do get the best of both worlds from that on top of it. You then look, of course, into the extra deck. You'll probably be looking at mainly Macabre, and then it depends on what else you'd want to play around with. Now, Macabre is about £1.50 a card, about $2, and then you'll be looking at stuff like Gedes if you want to bump it up. A Gedes, in my opinion, would be a very good option because you will be utilising a lot of fusion monsters, whether you are sending them with the Ice Jade or whether you want to be using the next engine that I will mention in order to improve it. So when you compare the Invoked engine with the Shaddoll engine, they pretty much marry up to be the same value. So you'll be looking at adding an additional £50 on top of your £24 investment on the structure decks, bringing the total around about £70-ish, which pretty much collates to nearly $100, which to me, for a competitive deck, keeping in mind that Shaddolls do an incredible lot on their own as well, so do Invoked, is very, very important. Moving on to the next engine that you can invest in, and that is of course Dogmatikas. Now the best thing about the Dogmatikas is quite like everything else, they don't utilize the extra deck. So they really don't care that you lock yourself into fusion summoning, and as long as you are using your fusion summons first and then using your Dogmatikas, it is incredibly powerful. Keep in mind as well that with the Dogmatika package, when you're using stuff like Maximus and the Dear Servant, it will also help you get those Albion or Albaz fusion monsters out of your extra deck and into the graveyard, being able to utilize their end phase effects, which within the new structure deck, you have access to a pretty much monster negate, I believe, or an omni negate in the form of the Merry Carrier. So that gives you a nice little bonus as well. And it kind of gives you that ability to utilize the special summon off of Titaniclad, and then the recycle effects of all of the others as well. So when you are trying to get the Dogmatika package, what are you looking at getting? Well, you'll be looking at getting number one, 2 copies of Nadir Servant. Now these I found a really, really good deal on eBay, and if someone else doesn't pick these up, I might highly consider it. So you get a pair of Nadir Servants, and they've got 4 copies available, or 4 pairs available, for £15. So it pretty much rolls them down to £7.50. And again, yes, they've had a little knockback on the ban list and been put down to 2. However, if you are not planning, or if Konami are not planning to hit that engine any further, investing into 2 Nadir Servants is definitely going to be worth it, because not only can you send your Albaz extra deck monsters to the graveyard to get their effects at some point as well as setting up other cards during your opponent's turn, but you also get the ability of being able to search into Ecclesia, which will ultimately lead you into Maximus, and the Maximus can then send into other options. I do apologise for the light. As you can tell, I am recording this during the day, so the sun keeps coming and going and coming and going. Carrying on, of course, you do want to get the one Maximus. It is really bizarre to me that Konami included Fleur-de-Lis in the structure decks, but they didn't include Ecclesia or Maximus. Considering that Ecclesia searches everything else out, you would have liked to have thought that she could have been a nice introduction. Maximus sits at about £1.50, and when you look at Ecclesia, she is the most expensive, sitting around £8 to £9. Now, if you wanted to keep your budget tight, you could only run 1 copy of her if you really, really wanted to, or you could max out and go up to 3. It's entirely up to you. Now, the idea play, again, if you play Branded Fusion plus Nadir Servant, what this utilises, and it also utilises cards from the Shaddoll package, is it basically sets your board up with a Mirror Jade, plus the idea of having 2 monsters on the board, 1 Maximus in defense, and Ecclesia that can't be destroyed by monsters from the extra deck. And then, off the back of that as well, you'll also get the ability to add to your board a Shaddoll Schism, which can lead into a window. So that is something that you would be buying whether you get into the Shaddoll package or whether you get into the Dogmatika package as well. And basically it gives you a 2-card combo that gives you, like I said, the Ice Jade interruption during your opponent's turn, plus the ability of a window and more monsters on the board. Keeping in mind as well that Maximus will be sending other monsters from the extra deck, so that gives you easy access to Kit. It also gives you easy access to the Merry Carrier as well that we get in the structure deck. So it actually helps you utilise the engine a lot more and utilise those different versions of the Albaz fusions a lot more as well, because some of them are just going to be used as fodder to get from the extra deck to the graveyard, trigger their effects, whereas the others you might actually fusion summon as well. Okay, now we'll move on to the last engine, and then I'll talk about other cards that I highly, highly, highly advise you buy, regardless, because they will fit in all of the different versions you're going for. So the last one is incredibly expensive right now, and that is of course the Despia engine itself. Yes, we did get announced that Aluba is going to get a guaranteed reprint in Ghosts from the Past. However, there are a lot of things to consider on that one. All it has done to the price of Aluba is it's dropped it from about a £100 card to about a £60 card. Keeping that in mind as well, when Ghost of the Past comes around, I expect a lot of people to be buying into it, but you don't know how short or how highly printed the Aluba is going to be. I feel that it could be a £20 card on release because people will open up so much and then they'll start selling it off, but then I feel it would creep up, especially if it's going to be utilised and abused. Now, the reason Aluba is so abused in the deck is for the pure fact that it actually searches out all of your branded spells. So that gives you into Branded Fusion, that gives you into Branded Paradise, it also gets you into the Despia field spell because it has branded in the name, and then it can also utilise some of the trap cards. But keep in mind that the kit that you get in, I believe it's called the Spring Guns kit that you get in the structure deck, pretty much does the same job a little bit, but it makes you add the card and then put a card back to the bottom of the deck, which is really, really good because it is very easily summonable, but, not even a word, but we're going to go with it anyway. It's easily summonable, and then it helps you get to it. So it is kind of like your budget Aluba, so I wouldn't be rushing out to spend £60 on those as well. Keeping in mind that as soon as you dive into the branded package, you're going to be looking into playing branded opening and branded in red. both of which have not been confirmed as a reprint in Ghost from the Past, and the chances are they're probably going to get reprinted in the Megatins, which come out around August, September time this year if they don't get delayed. They are currently sitting at anywhere from £4 to £6 a copy, and you'll be looking at playing threes of maybe each of those as well. The main reason for playing Branded in Red is for this crazy bad boy right here, and that is Guardian Chimera. Now, I was shocked when I looked on eBay. I knew that they were already climbing in price, but when I looked at eBay and I saw that they were £50 a copy, I was like, oh my god, there is no way. I hope you have all got your Guardian Chimeras if you intend to play it this route. If you don't have your Guardian Chimeras, do not worry. All of the past engines that I have suggested to you work just as well. And when we get into the other cards you can buy, you will not need to worry about it as a threatening option because trust me, I love this card, and this card that I'm going to mention in a minute is going to be so good for the upcoming meta that it's absolutely crazy, and definitely go and buy them because I think it's on, what's it got? Ulti, Secret, Gold, Ultra, I think it's got a Super, and then a Common. So if you haven't figured it out by now, I will reveal it in a minute. So along with the Despia stuff as well, you'll be looking at some of the other bit like dramas and tragedies. They're very, very cheap or relatively cheap in comparison to the rest. But it's kind of like the knock-on effect that straight away by buying one Guardian Chimera, you could have bought the whole Invoked engine, the whole Dogmatika engine, or the whole Shaddoll engine as well. So you've kind of got to look at it at what your budget restraints are and where you're going to go. If you've already got the Guardian Chimera but you don't have the rest of the stuff, that is a very easy trade fodder in my opinion to go, right, okay, I'll get rid of the Guardian Chimera and I'll get these in because I don't plan to go the Despia route. And the reason the Despia route is a little bit better for abusing Guardian Chimera is because Branded in Red lets you fusion summon it, and then off of the back of that, that then lets you get draws or pops during your opponent's turn as well. I don't really need to mention it, but I will, but Fusion Destiny is also going to be used and abused in this structure deck like mad. So keep in mind of that because basically you just do everything you need to do and you're looking at Branded Opening being a 1-card fusion spell, Fusion Destiny being a 1-card fusion spell. It just keeps going and going and going and going. So let's move on to the cards that do not fall within an engine, but I highly, highly, highly advise you go out and buy. So we start off with one, and the first one is Fusion Deployment. Now, Fusion Deployment locks you into Fusion Summoning, but keep in mind, you don't care because your best fusion spell in Branded Fusion is going to be doing that anyway. The other thing with Fusion Deployment is it gets you an Albaz from the deck to the field, which can then allow you to trigger Albaz's effect to discard a card to then fuse with Albaz and one monster on your opponent's side of the field. So it's going to be a very, very good going second card. It is currently sitting at around £2.25, I believe, on a playset. So that's very, very cheap, and it's definitely worth having a playset as an option in comparison to Ecclesia, the Incredible Ecclesia, which is basically a £38 quick play monster that you can special summon if your opponent has more monsters than you, which is great, and then you can tag it out for Albaz, which then means you can fuse with Albaz. It works a little bit better because if you've got Branded Paradise or Magical Meltdown, of course your opponent cannot respond to that effect to fusion summon, which is really, really important as well, or can't negate that fusion summon. However, Ecclesia is £37, whereas Branded Fusion, like I said, is a playset for like £3. So definitely worth picking up. Now the next card, in my opinion, is the most important card. Whether you're going to main in it, and I personally am going to main it, if not at the very least siding it, is going to be Super Poly. Now like I said, Super Poly has had so many prints, it's absolutely maddening, but you can get a playset for about £7.50. Now that will be ultra rares, I believe, is the ones that I found, but you can also get commons, secrets, depends on how fancy you want your rarities to be. But the reason this card is going to be so good is keep in mind as well, in Dimension Fusion, we get a brand new Albaz Fusion monster that basically says any Dragon monster plus Albaz, and it can use multiple Dragon monsters. So if your opponent has in the Albaz deck majority dragons, you're then going to be able to go, cool, Super Poly, clear board, opponent can't respond. It's also an incredibly powerful go second card as well, considering that the majority of format, a lot of people are going to be locking themselves into fusion summoning. That's where D-Barrier comes in that you get in the structure deck. But you're also able to go, okay, Super Poly. Now, if they did want to try and spice up and they wanted to use Sanctums and they wanted to try and stop you going into the extra deck, the best thing about that is as soon as they try to trigger something in order to trigger the Scythe, you can go, cool, chain Super Poly, and you'll still get something from that play. Whether that be the ability to get into one of your Albaz monsters, whether it be the ability to get into the generics of something like Starving Venom, Dracus the Pelio, which is definitely a cheaper option. Venom is about £5 card, whereas Dracus the Pelio is like a 50p common, so a no-brainer there. You've also got Mud Dragon as well, so it's not so much just about dodging Scythe, but it also gives you that ability to break your opponent's board, especially when they're going to be rocking up with, like, the end board of being amazing. If you open up the complete nuts, can be like a Mirror Jade, a Masquerade Dragon, which I haven't really talked about too much because that kind of falls under the Despia area. And then it also includes a DPE as well. So you can kind of see that the options of different bits and ways that they're going to be going for it. Whereas the Super Poly just goes and claps that entire board out. I believe Mirror Jade is a dark. If it isn't, you're then still looking at Tax Dragon, which I believe is a dark or a light, and then of course you've got DPE. So just Super Poly plus a discard and you're going second, so you've still got 4 more cards to play with. It's going to pretty much break that entire board apart, and then you're able to build your own as well off the back of it. Keep in mind as well that your opponent will probably be maining Super Poly as well, so you want to kind of keep your limits down because they can just Super Poly your board as well. But keep in mind that £7.50 for a playset, it's definitely a no-brainer in my opinion to 100% invest into that card. We now look at some of the spicy techs that you can add to this, and one of the spicy techs, shout out to Kyron, but of course is Dark Claw and Mask Change 2. Now Dark Claw is currently like a 99p common because it came in the Legendary Hero structure decks like a long time ago, but then you also got Mask Change 2, which also came as a ultra rare and goes from the past at 99p. Now the reason this is so good is, again, in all of the pre-aforementioned versions, you can activate Mask Change 2 to discard any particular card you want. Obviously you'll get a bit more value depending on what type of deck you are playing, but you discard any card and turn it into a Dark Claw. Now the issue with this is it is very much going first version in my opinion in comparison to something like Shaddoll Fusion, because you ideally don't want to be going to a Dark Claw go second unless you're going to the battle phase, quick effect, tag out Dark Claw in, tag out a Dark Monster into Dark Claw. Dark Claw does some damage, banishes stuff on the field as well, and it starts ripping from your opponent's hand. Very good spicy tech. The one thing that you will need to keep in mind on is the amount of stuff that you use to discard. So Albaz discards. If you play Keeper of Dragon Magic, which I personally will be in the budget version, discards. You then look at Super Poly, discards, and Mask Change 2, discards. So straight away you've got 4 cards in your deck that are making you discard from the hand. So that means you need to be playing cards in order to regain your hand advantage. Otherwise you will be negging on a huge level. Not to mention that Branded Opening also does that as well. So that's pretty much it for all of the little spicy techs that you can use, and I definitely think that while they are cheap, it's worth picking up because then you can experiment with them as well, and you're not really losing huge amounts of value or huge amounts of money, and it will become one of those things where it's like, right, okay, well I'm getting a lot of success with Dark Claw, I'm going to keep that in, or I'm getting a lot of success with Super Poly, I'm going to keep that in as well. So it's just kind of a lot to keep in mind and go through there. So as a quick recap of all of the engines that we'll be looking at, of course, number 1 would be the Shaddolls, and again, I'll put the price of the total combined amount up there as well. So you've got your Dolls, you've got your Invoked, you've got your Dogmatikas, they're all of the cheaper versions in my opinion, and then of course you've got the money breakers of your Despias, and then the last bit that we've just gone over are all the kind of splashable cards that will fit in all of those that I highly advise you invest in, because they will definitely help the deck out, help you not only beat the deck as well, but increase the power of your deck as a very minimal investment as well. Anyway, I hope you have found this video as interesting and as informative as possible, and I hope it's given you a couple of ideas to go and look online. Like I said, we've got tier 0 that you can get bulk deals on as well. There's also plenty of others, and I used eBay as the generic kind of balance between American websites, European websites, and UK websites. But again, if you look at your local environment, they'll probably be the best places to do, because you'll speak to them and be like, look, can I grab a deal off of this? Or go to a trusted seller and be like, look, I'm looking for all of these cards, what deal can you do for me? It's definitely also advised to test these online as well to see which format suits you most or which engine suits you most, and then build from there, because I do feel that the upcoming months will definitely be a lot of Branded, if not the next month for sure, and then it'll get a nice little boost in the Dimension Fusion, which comes out in, I believe, the middle of May, and then kind of roll from there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.